Hello and greeting. We are from Group 7 while presenting the importance of the separation power in government system. The separation is divided by three, which is legislative, executive and judicial. So what is legislative? Legislative is enact new laws or amend existing laws. Legislative also act as a mechanism to oversee government activities. The legislature in Malaysia is the parliament. So here, one of the icon and symbols of the Malaysian parliament. Next is executive, or known as law enforcers. Executive will implement the law that have been enacted by the legislators, and their main role is to maintain public order. The icon above is the example of the executive department in Malaysia, such as Polis di Raja, Angkatan Tentera Malaysia, Penjaga Rasuah, Jabatan Imigresen, etc. Next is the judicial, where the judicial interprets the enacted laws, and judicial also practices the law that have been enacted by the legislators. Judicial main role is to uphold justice and fairness within the society. There are many roles in the judicial department, such as example, judges, DA, DPP, prosecution services and etc. The both blue icon is one of the judicial symbol. All of the three main power are separate from each other. The federal government adopts the principle of separation of powers under Article 127 of the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. Malaysia is a country that values the separation of powers between the executive, legislative and judicial branches, as this provides checks and balances against one another. Judicial independence is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and it treats everyone as equal before the eyes of the law. This is irrespective of one's political status or authority. Is the separation important? Would it affect the Malaysian government system if they don't separate? So, keep watching our video presentation to discover it. The first reason or factor why it should be separate is to avoid the duplication of jurisdiction. There are certain of the parties responsible for implementing matters related to their field only. For example, the executive parties cannot interfere in areas managed by the legislature because the legislature is responsible in shaping the national legal system, while the executive parties also manages matters that related to administration at the federal or state level, in other words, has governing jurisdiction only. In the executive department there is also a division of power between the administration at the federal and state levels. The executive parties is only capable of deciding and formulating policies as well as ensuring that the dedicated agencies' departments perform their responsibilities in their respective fields. The same goes for the judiciary, which is only responsible in matters of giving justice, reviewing the law, ensuring the law does not conflict with the federal constitution, and can overturn actions of the ruling party that conflict with the federal or state constitution. This party should not at all consolidate its powers with the executive, but it is to some extent closely linked to the legislature. Next, why it is important to separate the government power is to avoid the abuse of power. If the executive, legislative and judicial parties are centralized in one department only, it is likely that there will be malpractice or abuse that can cause the law to only favor and benefit the government, as well as the possibility of oppression of the local citizen. For the judiciary, the appointment of federal or high court judges is appointed advice of the Conference of Rulers, but the Prime Minister needs to seek the opinion of the Chief Judge, Tengku Mainam Tengku Mail. In addition, there is the Judges Ethics 1994, aimed at ensuring that judges behave honestly and responsibly in performing their duties. With this, the doctrine of separation of powers can alleviate problems such as power of attorney, because the executive has no power in the legislative parties as well as with the judiciary parties. Next, allows each parties to act without being disturbed or influenced by the other parties. Effectiveness in the division of administrative powers based on the doctrine of separation of powers can indirectly facilitate parties such as the executive, legislature and judiciary to carry out their respective responsibilities. In addition, this parties only has the role of implementing laws that have been approved by the legislature either by Parliament at the federal level or the state legislative assembly at the state level. Alright, we already at the conclusion now. Separation of powers is key to the workings of government. No democratic system exists with an absolute separation of powers or an absolute lack of separation of powers. Throughout history, there also has been an ebb and flow of preeminence among the governmental branches. That's all from us from Group 7, and we hope you will understand what we explained through the animation creative video. See you next time and hope you enjoy it. Love from us MLCKB. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Grazie.
Created using Powtoon.